How exciting to see so many friends here tonight. And we really thank you for joining us. I can guarantee you you're in for a superb evening because if nothing else happens, we just have Yue-Sai with us. And as you know from the title of her book, China's Most Famous Woman, she has done so many things in her career, but also for her country, and also for women, and for the world in general, that there's so much to learn about her tonight. So I hope that in an hour or so, we have a chance to explore a bit about what has been her journey, and then we'll stop and have some Q&A after about, maybe half an hour of conversation between the two of us. So I think we have the clicker. You're controlling. Okay, great. Well, we all know a little bit about Yue-Sai, but there are many, many layers to her life. Parts that she's very public about, but also personal parts of her life that some of her friends know about it. Her devotion to her family, her absolute loyalty to her friends from many years ago, and the friends who've been with her through her successful journey. But she is the most loyal friend I have ever encountered. And I'm very grateful for our friendship. So let's talk a little bit about the beginning of your journey. You have been one of the rare people who've written two autobiographies. And because one is in Chinese and one is in English, because Yue-Sai is totally duolingual. But can you tell us a little bit why you chose to go to the work of having two autobiographies? And is there any difference between the two in substance?
I want to first, again, thank you all for coming. And I'm delighted that my Lulu is my moderator. And, you know, she is, I always say that when I grow up, I like to be like Lulu because she is everything that I want to be. She has devoted her life to really for public good and doing so much for everything and everybody and all these organizations. And this is surely not a joke what she has done. So I'm delighted to be here, and I'm of course delighted to see so many old friends. Hello, Consul General.
Hello.
And I do have some really, truly old friends here. I can see our Perlmutter, who actually went to China with me.
Long-standing friends, not old friends.
Long-standing friends.
We never get old.
Oscar, long-standing friends.
Right.
And he actually went to China with me and to film. We did actually we did a 1-hour documentary that was entered into the congressional record.
Wonderful.
That was really wonderful. And I do see that some people that work for my cosmetic company way back, and that was like 33 years ago, and Donna Formosa was my first makeup artist that went literally all over China. And she can tell you, actually in the book, there are some stories that she wrote some stories about it too. And so anyway, what am I supposed to say?
Well, so
what's the question?
Well, there's a lot to cover, but I was curious because we have many bilingual people in our group here.
Two books.
So why the book in Chinese and why in English, and are they different in substance?
Oh yeah, okay. The two books are different in not so much in the story itself, right? Because my life is just my life, but it's the way it's presented. You know, I do know that every Chinese in China knows me. And so the way I started the book is really from the day, actually my grandfather who went to America, and that was how I started it, and all the way to about 4 years ago when this book stopped. So this is the structure, and doing the Chinese book is really difficult. I don't know, I don't know if you know, but the regulations today are much rougher in China. I have done, the Chinese book is my 10th book in China. And so I've done 10 Chinese books, and that all the books before was very easy for me to get approval. But now it's even harder. It took, usually a book would take about 2 months for me to get an approval. But this book, this Chinese biography in Chinese, it took about 10 to 11 months. And at one point, Lulu, I thought that they were never going to let this go. I mean, everything is sensitive for some reason. And of course, one of the reasons why it was difficult because I wrote some names of Chinese leaders. Now is the rule that your books are not allowed to have the leaders' names. For example, my preface was actually written by the vice premier of China, which itself is an extraordinary thing to get in China, right? And I was so eager to put it in. It was it was really wonderful to have him write it. And he's elderly, he wrote it, he sealed it, he signed it, it was just very, very touching to me. And I was not allowed to put that in. But when I do my English book, it's free. This country is free. You can write anything you want, and you can say anything you want. And so I put him right in the beginning of the book as a preface for the book, and you'll read it. It's actually very, as I said, very, very touching. So, and all the Chinese leaders' names that were not allowed to be put in China, they had to retract a lot of those things. That's why they probably took so long because of that, right? So in my case, in the English case, all the names are in. But the way I present
pictures too.
Well, first of all, I'm a visual person. I'm a TV person, right? I've done thousands of TV programs. And of course, my friends mean a great deal to me. And some of the people who are not in the book, in pictures, is because I just couldn't find pictures of them. It's not that I didn't want to put them in there. I just couldn't find, I spent a whole week trying to find a dear friend of mine. I just couldn't find. So finally I called her. I said, can you find a picture? She said, I don't have any. So in other words, my favorite thing is pictures, because I do know that it's important to have such memories. And so the book has, in fact, if you go into QR code, you actually are able to see some of the television programs I have done, both in Looking East and all the serials that I did for PBS and on the shows I did for China as well. So in other words, actually everything is in there. And the way I started the English book was that I wanted to have a very important, the most important night of my life in that book to start the book. The reason is because that was the night that I launched my TV series on CCTV. And that was the night, probably, I have to say, that was an amazing night, first of all, right? And it was the night that changed the trajectory of my life. And I can boldly say that it changed China. Because for the first time, the Chinese, who have been so enclosed in the world, to the world, that nobody could go in. Do you remember those days? Nobody could go into China, and nobody could come out of China, and it was everything I presented to them in that whole series called One World were the first time they ever saw the outside world. And I know that a lot of people say that I am here because your television program really inspired me, right? So I think that it had a lot of significance in that, it changed so many people's perception about the world outside of China. But while I'm talking about that, I think it's very important to remember that that was the time when China was just beginning to open.
What year was this now?
For me, it was 1984.
Okay,
and
76
remember,
is when
remember Deng Xiaoping says to open door 1979. It was at that time that but this is a brilliant strategy. The Chinese government said it to itself, how are we going to have an open door policy unless our people know something about the outside world? And the outside world knows something about China. So this is the reason why I did so many programs about China for the Western world, and I did so many programs for China to explain the world to them. So, but isn't that a brilliant move, though?
Yes.
Because I don't believe that they ever did that before. First of all, they asked me to do a TV series with both English and Chinese. I couldn't speak Chinese at that time. Would you believe that?
I know you learned all
Yeah,
over
I
again.
learned to speak Chinese after I signed my contract. That was really bold.
But you had the basics. You had the basics.
It was crazy of me to do that, right? But in those days, it was not easy to learn Chinese here in New York because you could hardly find anybody who could speak Chinese very well. Yeah, you have some Shanghainese who tell you that they speak Chinese. They speak Chinese with an accent, you know.
But the Shanghai accent is very elegant. It's the only dialect
Because
I
she
still speak.
speaks.
And Oscar too.
So this is what I'm saying, you know. So it's very funny that I'm talking about learning Chinese. I only spoke Cantonese, and you know Cantonese is very, very different from Mandarin, right? Do you?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
good. Okay. So in other words, you know, I had to learn Chinese to do the TV show. It was very, very difficult for me. It was very scary for me to actually do that. But this is interesting. You know, they didn't have money to pay me.
Oh,
You know, China at that time in 1984 was probably the poorest country on earth, and you know that. You know, because the richest person I found was somebody who made 48 yuan in 1 month. 48 yuan in 1 month. You know, that was somebody who worked for CCTV, and that was a very rich person. And today,
was the
you know,
exchange 7-1 then?
no, not 7-1, and even not 7. But to think about it, you know, it's very easy for me to find a few billionaires, Chinese billionaires, to come to my home for dinner easily, right? Today, we all know that, right? But it's true, you all know that. But you know, to go from that 48 yuan per month in China to the country full of billionaires, and you know, this, that it's only a span of 40 years. What happened? What happened? This is the reason why I wrote the book. What happened? Now, I am not a historian. I can only tell you my own story, my little story, but not so little. Yeah, but my story. But by going through my story, you actually can see a glimpse, or you can get a glimpse of actually what happened in that during that amazing 40 years when China has become the second largest economy. What happened? What are the reasons? There has to be reasons why this country. I happened to be a participant, and I happened to be a witness. So I say, okay, let me write this book.
And you actually an accelerant to it. You help to speed the growth along for China.
Yeah, I do know that for sure. That when I launched cosmetics, for example, TV, of course, is amazing. The fact that they asked me, a foreigner, hey, I look Chinese, but I wasn't very Chinese. I couldn't speak Chinese. I knew very little about China, except I lie a lot, you know.
But the Chinese were fascinated by the Western world, that they were beginning to open the curtains a little bit. And you were just the right person at that time. You were Chinese, but you also knew the Western world. And you could teach the Chinese the Western world, the Western way of doing business. So,
you know, you're right. I mean, in television, you know, isn't a wonderful thing that we can do through television to bring about understanding between peoples? If that is, that certainly is the one reason why television existed in my life. And I think that I have to tell you something very funny, okay? The Chinese, so I said, you don't have money for me. You're the poorest station in the world. And you're asking me to go around the world making a television series to explain the world to your people. How am I going to produce this show? Television in those days is like 12 trunks, you know. I had to carry. It's not like this little camera like this here. You know, in the old days, you know, we had to carry like 12 trunks of equipment to go around the world to shoot. So I said, how am I going to pay for this? So we came up with the idea that they would give me advertising time. So I have to go push to advertising in order to produce this series. So the first people that came to me was coffee. And I said, wow, they wanted to sell coffee to a land of
Tea drinkers.
Wow, that was really bold. And I said to myself, it must be miserable. This is going to be a big failure. In 3 months, they sold out everything that they had. It was really quite extraordinary. And you know that the Chinese are the biggest coffee drinker today, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
I mean, they have so many brands of coffee, many more than even here. And then they had no money. So I said, well, why don't you do this? Give me a contract, sign a contract for me, and so that I can go to the West, we'll go back to New York and try to find some sponsors, right? Mm-mm. Well, the second sponsor that came in was Procter & Gamble. And so I said to them, in those days it was telex. Do you guys remember telex? Are you old enough to remember telex? So the telex came in, and I got a telex. I said, please approve Procter & Gamble. They telex me back like immediately. So sorry, we cannot approve Procter & Gamble. We don't approve gambling. Seriously. This is how very backward they were. So let me tell you one more thing. So they asked me to write the contract. I said, I need a contract. So I said, well, tonight, why don't you go back to the hotel and just write a contract? So I wrote a contract of 8 points, very simple contract, English version, Chinese version, that we're going to go to all these. I'm taking care of all the expenses, blah, blah, blah. We have advertising in the show. Well, the next day I got to the office. They quickly stamped and sealed with a sign. I said, wow, that was really amazing. These people are very efficient. Recently, I saw the lady Liu Jinru, who was in charge of advertising. And I'm sure that Xu Hui remember Liu Jinru. I said to Jinru, Jinru, why did you guys, I still puzzled me, why did you guys sign and seal so fast? He said, because we didn't know how to write a contract. They did not know how to write a contract in those days. That is the China that I entered. And this is today, if you want to do something with China, CCTV, your contract was probably about this thick, and probably 12 departments have to sign off. The bureaucracy is amazing. So I went through some really very interesting times, and I think that I really would like to share, because it is so rare. In the first trip I went to China, I would never forget that first trip I went to China. For those of you born in China, for you it may be very simple, very ordinary thing to see. But for me to see the whole city of Beijing packed with cabbage was shocking. But what the hell are those cabbage doing all over their balcony, all over their everywhere. I mean, in the back of their trunks and everything. Well, no, actually, very few cars. So you know why?
Tied to the bicycles, the cabbage.
Not only that, but you know why they had all this cabbage? Because they had to pickle them, they have to salt them, they have to preserve them for the entire winter, because there was nothing else, no other vegetables to eat. Isn't that true, Min? Yes. So it was a very, very interesting, really a very interesting time. And today, when you go to Beijing, my gosh, the 5-star, 6-star hotels are shocking, right? I mean, you cannot even believe the kind of changes that have taken place since I went there first time. So it was, the television part of it was really fun.
It's so exciting to hear about the early days. And let's keep that in mind, because we'll talk a bit more about how your life unfolded. But I think towards the end of our talk, I think a lot of people would like to understand, because the question right now is China investable? Is China now so regulated and so controlled by government? Is it investable? And I think you know the country so well, and you've been able to navigate the rules.
Nobody understands the country very well.
Well, so that's the quandary. That's the quandary. Before we leave this room, it'd be interesting to see if you were to face the future now, and you were a young 20-some-year-old, interested in making your career in China, do you think what would be the ways that you could find an opportunity? Because it is different. It's not the wild cowboy days. Things are more carefully regulated. But still, there must be opportunities
Lots of opportunities.
So good. We would love to.
Well, of course, lots of opportunities. Look at, 他们说行行有出状元，对吗? It's the Chinese saying. every line of business, you can come up with somebody who's a winner. Every business is still the same. I mean, when I launched cosmetics in China, when there was no one using cosmetics, was that an opportunity? No, it wasn't an opportunity unless you make an opportunity, right? I mean, like, for example, China, the Chinese people are very interesting. They are so flexible. They are so able to change the way, they're so able to change the way they live. For example, I remember when I first there, nobody ate cheese. Nobody in China ate cheese. But gosh, today a lot of Chinese eat cheese. Look at pizza. Look at Domino Pizza in China. They eat cheese. They eat cheese. I remember when I was there was no such a thing as red wine and white wine. Are you kidding me? They would drink Mao Tai, right?
Yes.
They don't drink this. And today, you go to go to dinner with a Chinese, they will always have a bottle of red wine or a white wine. Because in the last 40 years, the way they live have changed dramatically.
And they love champagne, too.
And they love champagne too, and the Chinese not only drink them, they collect them like crazy. They also, what else? They buy up all the vineyards around the world, on the top of which they also are building vineyards. There are about 200 some odd vineyards today in China that are really winning awards everywhere. It's just really the amazing ability of the Chinese to adapt and to accept is amazing. Oh, okay, just talk about cosmetics. People thought I was absolutely crazy to think that I'm going to introduce cosmetics to a country that had no one using cosmetics. Oh, no, two kinds. The hookers and the hookers and the people who were on stage. Okay, those were the people, only people who used cosmetics. And so I introduced cosmetics to this country. So
how did you get people to think of cosmetics as not the kind of thing that the bad ladies wore? How did you normalize it so the proper women wanted to look beautiful?
Look, she's so ladylike, the bad woman. I said hookers. How did I do it?
Yes. How did you take the title off of it?
Well, I think first of all, I was already very famous in China when I launched.
And you looked great with cosmetics.
I have to tell you this. I did 3 pilot programs for the Minister of Television before the show was launched. And I was very, very concerned about the way I look, because you know me. I use false lashes. I wear all these color clothes, right? I look at me and my makeup. But in China at that time, Lulu, nobody on television used anything.
Oh, so drab.
Drab. The whole country was drab.
Oh, gray and
the whole country was gray, and that's why we colorized China. So
how did you present that it was good to look colorful?
No. I was wearing a very boring jacket with a white shirt and no makeup, and that's how we did our pilot. And the Minister of Television seriously said to me, he said, "Yue-Sai, I think these programs are going to be very popular with our people. However, is this the way you make television shows in America?" I said, "No." He said, "I want you to make television shows the way you make television show in America. I want our Chinese television people to learn." In fact, he asked me to write a book about how I did my television series. So, in other words, I was absolutely convinced that with the fact that they asked a fake Chinese who couldn't speak Mandarin to do a TV show, they allowed advertising to be on TV, right? They allow Procter & Gamble on TV. And the fact that they asked me to wear everything that I wear in the United States, these things are confirmations to me that they were surely interested in opening up. And this open door policy, that is a picture of me in Inner Mongolia.
And the hallmark red lipstick, yeah.
No, darling. What do you call it? The poster is the entire block. Look at me, I'm in the middle of the picture. It's funny, right? It's very funny. But anyway, so I was absolutely convinced that China wanted to open. There's no question to me. That's why later on I didn't mind investing in China. So I started a cosmetic company, and I mean everybody would think that I would flop, right? Because, but I said to myself, Chinese woman is going to be like us. They will one day use lipsticks. They will use cosmetics. They will use a lipstick like they will use a toothbrush, brushing their teeth. And you know what? I was right. Today you cannot tell a Chinese woman coming out from China, and as compared to in the old days, I could tell immediately this woman is from China. She looks it, but now you cannot. The Chinese women
they're
from
so
China,
glamorous, some of them.
so glamorous. I mean, they were. Oh my God! I mean, wow! I mean,
well, thanks to you. You talk.
Not thanks to me, but it's thanks to them. Is their ability to change. Is their ability to absorb. I am absolutely amazed how. Why do you think China changed so fast in 40 years? You think, you think, okay, America really helped a great deal. I mean, since China joined WTO, the economy went like that. Okay, so the first credit has to go to America. The second credit has to go to the Chinese government
the openness
itself.
too, right.
The Chinese government is willing to change policies and change it so fast, and to make it possible for people to actually adapt to this new environment of open door policy. And the third reason I have to say that is the Chinese. They're innovative. I think Kevin Rudd says continuously about how very, very incredible the Chinese are. That they're innovative. They are, forget about it. They work hard. They work like dogs. No, how about not dogs? What animal should it be? They work. I have never seen people work like that. And today, you at 3 a.m, you're hungry. You called up the food delivery people. Do you know that they would deliver food to you in half an hour? I mean, that means the only one thing, they work 24 hours. Yeah, I mean, how do you find this here? I can't find this here. So I think that the third has to credit to the Chinese themselves. They are very, very adaptable, and they are hardworking. My brother over there, Sergio, will tell you that you give a prototype to a Chinese factory, right? You told me the story. And then overnight, they will give you a prototype. You give them a sample. The next morning, they give you a prototype. Isn't that true? 100%. 100%. Where do you get that? Italy? 3 months, probably. So
Well,
why
when you
are
took me shopping in Shanghai,
we went shopping. We had a good time.
Well, shopping in Shanghai, shopping anywhere with Yue-Sai is a challenge because they all recognize her and they won't accept her money. So she said, Lulu, I'm going to take you shopping. We went to dinner, lunch, breakfast at the Shangri-La, I think.
Yes.
And I told her I wanted
Youtiao. Oh, she loves this. She loves this thing.
And she was surprised. I ate 3 Youtiao. She said, I've never seen anyone put down that many. I said, when it's good, I can really eat a lot of it. So we went shop. We had the Shanghai breakfast. Then we went shopping. And then I said, well, as long as I'm here, I'll make up a few suits and a few basic dresses. This is my kind of uniform. So we went to her favorite tailor, and we picked out the fabric, 1, 2, 3. We picked out 5 or 6 bolts of silk and cashmere and so forth. And then she asked me to bring a sample suit and a sample dress. So I gave them that. And with the sample suit and the sample dress and the fabric, they had everything made in 24 hours. I went and had dinner at Yue-Sai's home the next evening, and at 6:30 the doorbell rings. They're delivering all of the stuff, all made and beautifully pressed, and we had to say we have to pay for this. I'm not going to accept this if I don't pay for it. And finally, we worked out something where they at least made some money. But you said they don't want to get paid when it's me because they love her so much. But it was fun.
Wait a second. Not exactly all the time. Sometimes I go with my assistants, right? And they will go with me, and we have a system. So as I would tell them, if I do this, that means I really like that, and if I do this, that means I don't like it. So, so after I walk past, this my assistant will start bargaining or just walk with me, right? There are two ways. You saw the good ones. They gave you things. They either give me everything, or they charge me 3 times as much. The Chinese just love money.
But they're also very proud of you too. You really are a homegrown star for them.
Well, I mean, my life was changed because of them, and I know that I've done some good in that country for sure. Like even cosmetics, you may think that cosmetics is cosmetic, lipstick. Then it's not. The idea of my launching cosmetics in China was a totally different idea. It was telling the Chinese woman, hey, you don't have to wear the same gray dress. You don't have to look so dreadful, especially when you have your period. Just smear some rouge over here and some lipstick, you'll look better. The idea is that you can change. The spirit of the product is that you can change whatever you want to be. You can be whatever you want to be. I tell you something. I just say that they are so amazing. They can change so fast. They really were able to just learn so fast.
Was it because you were Chinese that you were so successful in launching many new consumer product categories, in categories that a lot of non-Chinese Western companies came in and failed? What was it that you understood about marketing Chinese goods that many multinationals did not get?
I tell you, there are at least 5 reasons that I think I'm successful. One of the first reasons, obviously, is the fact that my name is a household name, and they trusted me. Did you trust me in China? You did, right? I mean, you trusted me. So if I tell you to use a lipstick, you use a lipstick, right? I mean, people come up and tell me they collect 3 sisters' money in order to buy a lipstick, something like that.
So they trusted you.
That is a very important reason. But generally for other people, let's just not talk about me. You have to be able to adapt to that market. That market is all business is cultural. Actually, all business is cultural. You need to adapt to this. Why do you think, for example, that KFC is so successful in China? There are 10,000 KFCs in 1,900 countries, and they every year they have 50 new products at least, right? And on top of which they also they adapt. For example, if you are in Sichuan province where everybody eats very hot, spicy food, all their KFCs are spicier.
Yes.
And they have joke. They have joke in the morning, rice soup in the morning. No, you have that here? No, you don't. The KFC here, they don't have that at all here. So you have to custom make. Why is it that KFC, with all these Chinese competitors who come in with the cheapest products you can imagine, and they still cannot kill them, cannot kick KFC out of China? It's because KFC is very clever in adapting to the public. To the public needs. Yue-Sai's Cosmetics called the best the world has to offer for you. Well, can you debate that? I mean, if I tell you it's the best you can get in the world, right? It's for you, right? So that is a very important thing. So, the second thing I have to tell you is the Chinese. Because I sold my company to L'Oreal, and L'Oreal, I said to them, how long do you think it would take you to launch this line of skincare? I said, 1.5 years. I said, what? 1.5 years? The Chinese will launch it in 3 months. You have to, do well. You want to do well in China, you do Chinese speed. You really have to do China. The Chinese go so fast, everything is so fast. And knowing the national foreign companies, you really cannot make decisions in Paris and Germany. You have to make decisions in China.
Yes.
If you're doing business in China, you make decisions in China because nobody can make that decision. It's a peculiar country. It is its own levels of of complexities. The culture is different. For me, it was really hard because I couldn't even speak the language very well. So I worked very hard in order to get to what it is. The fourth way is that you must remember China is huge with e-commerce. I mean, especially during COVID, the Chinese developed e-commerce. You cannot even begin to believe how fast they do. The e-commerce is now that 80% of all the products that we sold in China are really e-commerce products because they are so big. If you want some statistics, in 2023, 122 billion packages were shipped out in China. 122 billion. So if you want to compare it with, let's say, India, okay, everybody talks about India today, 88 million. So it's not exactly the same. And people always ask me, what is the next China after China? I said, the next China after China is still China. because China is so. I mean, it's not because I am Chinese. Oh, no, it's because I'm Chinese. Because I am a big fan. I am a huge fan. So the what did I just say? I gave you 4 reasons, right? And the last one, okay, I have one more reason. I don't want you to think China market is like this. China is huge. You have to think big. You cannot think little. You know, look at the logistic companies in like Federal Express. They do not think one city. They think so many cities. China is gigantic. If there's anything that is real about China, is that it's gigantic. And it has 1.4 billion amazing customers, right? And I know that Kevin Rudd talks about it all the time. You know that don't underestimate China, even though China is going through a really difficult time right now, and the Americans really want to, do everything there is to make sure that it doesn't grow so fast and doesn't grow so much. But I think people always forget. They think that. We always forget in America that we think that we're going to kill China. This is a culture of 5,000 years. China has seen all the ups and downs and all this, and yet it's still there. In fact, after the 100 years of humiliation, China rebuilt itself, right, and became this new China that we're looking at. So I am not going to underestimate, that the Americans forget they're not killing, China per se. Chinese culture is 5,000 years old. You can't kill that very easily, seriously.
Well, I think the non-Chinese companies who have prospered in China have been, and I remember talking to Leonard Lauder early in the days when he was rolling out Estee Lauder's exposure to China, and it was one of the most successful product rollouts for any Western company. He said, I spent all my time just listening and learning. And that paid respect to the marketplace, but he understood the culture. He also understood how things were done, how you can show respect by the kind of products you produce. If you produce cheap products with poor raw materials, and people learn that, the Chinese consumers have a very long memory. But if you respect the market, you use quality and price fairly, it will be successful. And I'm sure that's many ways in which you carried out your business. So even if you're Chinese, you still have to respect the consumer.
Yeah.
But going forward now with the massive growth that China experienced post the Cultural Revolution and then opening up to the Western world, with that behind you, and no longer the wind to your back, what do you think young people now, if they really want to have the kind of incredible success you had, what are the things they should be looking at?
You're talking about Chinese?
China market.
China market. Well, okay. there's, as I said, in every business in China, even a saturated market, there's still a lot of opportunities that you can actually go after. For example, even cars. Your biggest problem is competition in China. But competition is so keen in China. There's so many people. So just the month of July, they bought 51% of hybrid and electrical cars. That really means that whole market is totally different today. It is no longer the regular car that they are using now. And so, you can see that is the trend. If you want to make electrical cars, like GM is doing in China, I think you can still do it. However, as I said, is the competition that is so hard in China. Is the competition. In anything you do in China, you have to remember you have 1.54 billion people that are actually trying to compete for your business. China is the largest importer of food. So, and you ask the Australians, their Australian wines are very successful, and you just need how to open that market. You can even persuade them, to drink red wine, white wine. It didn't exist before. So who are those people? Those people were the very brave people who actually say, okay, I'm going to teach them how to do that. Today, caviar, the Chinese never really ate caviar before. Do you know that today the Chinese are the biggest caviar maker in the world?
Maker?
Yes, they produce more caviar than Russia does. You don't know that?
And they use traditional sturgeon, or they use different kind of fish?
Yeah, they do sturgeon. Yes. In fact, if you Google on the internet, you will find videos how they raise these fish in order to have caviar. I remember one time I went to Heilongjiang province. Heilongjiang province is right. This is a province next to the to the Russia, right? And I remember I was very happy that trip with my family. My whole family was with me to Heilongjiang province, the most northern province of China, and I got I'm the honorary citizen of Heilongjiang province. So the governor said to me at that time, that was about almost 35 years ago. He said to me, Yue-Sai, would you like to be our international distributor of caviar? Because we are now beginning to make caviar. So I said, no. What a stupid person. I'm so stupid. I should have done that. I should have said yes, right? I mean, it's just so many opportunities I have
But
lost.
you probably made just as much money selling lipsticks and cosmetics.
But isn't that interesting that they have? I mean, today, crazy. The Chinese competition, like cashmere. 80% of the cashmere in the world are made in China, right? I mean, today, today the Chinese make pearls like they're growing rice. It's crazy, and they actually they destroy their own market. Actually, this is the reason why you are able to get a beautiful cashmere jacket for like $100, right? But because they produce so much, they are able to manufacture so much that you get an opportunity to have such cheap product because they have learned. And you know what? The Chinese have learned to manufacture, and people think that it's easy. And of course, a lot of Chinese are opening factories in Cambodia, in Thailand, in Vietnam. But it would take some time. It took the Chinese 40 years to learn how to be the manufacturer, the factory of the world. You think that's easy? It's really not easy. They learn. They learn, right, Sergio? They learn to do this. So it will be a while. I know people in China who have factories. Now they have another factory in, let's say, Vietnam. They will make 80% of that product, ship to Vietnam. So the last 20% of that product is then made in Vietnam, so they can export to, let's say, America. But just by doing that alone, it's 30% more expensive. Why do you think we have, you call it in English, what is it, inflation in here? Why do you think things are so expensive? Because, just by moving that 20%, you pay 30% more. So you're going to be, with all the taxes that's coming into all the products that are coming into America from China, you're going to pay a hell of a lot more. This much I am absolutely sure.
So we haven't even touched upon we've touched upon the cosmetics industry, which you absolutely pioneered, but another great success for you has been TV, cable TV in particular. When you discovered cable TV, there was a limited number of channels, and there was nothing more than mostly government programming. So how did you see that as a nascent industry that you could really bring something to it?
You're talking about China?
Yes, in China.
Forget about it. You cannot get into television. It's government owned.
It's that right. Yeah. But now
you cannot. Even now, you cannot. In fact, if anything else, if anything at all, is even harder. The control is even harder. It's not looser. It's not like it's easier. No.
Are they no longer interested in Western content?
They do have Western content. IMAX still imports a number of movies into China. Yes, they still have Western contents, but the content that does most business today, even from IMAX, is really Chinese content, which is interesting, right? I mean, the Chinese movies today are making, most of them, I'm not talking all, are making more money than the Western content. But it's not that they don't want it, but the encouragement is not really to have a lot of Western content, I don't think. It's not easy. It's not easy. But media is totally controlled. Look, I was the ambassador for the Shanghai Film Festival for 12 years. Okay, I brought 56 A-list people there, and it was wonderful to see China like this open. I have everybody from Hugh Jackman to name them, all the Koreans, and everybody was there in all those years. Yeah. It's amazing. It truly is amazing to see China opening like that. I'm no longer involved in it because they are getting very For example, I asked if I could bring Al Pacino to the film festival and give him a Lifetime Achievement Award. I gave that Lifetime Achievement Award to Quincy Jones, to Catherine Deneuve, to a few people. But they told me that they don't want it. They are not going to give any more awards to foreigners. So I said, if that is the case, yours is not Shanghai International Film Festival. You might as well call it Shanghai Film Festival. So there are definitely some changes.
So are there any new frontiers that you see in China that will not be too highly regulated so that young capital can get into it and do what you did?
You are asking a very important question. Just yesterday, my general manager, the Yue-Sai Cosmetic general manager, Huashan Shenhong, you guys all know that, right? And they called me and they said, I just finished staying in 4 months in Shanghai, and we're going to launch a series of drugs in China. And they said to me, people say that the market is closed. It is not at all. You just need to know how to do it. So all the products that they want to launch have been approved. So I actually, in some ways, and not media. So don't talk about media. I mean, media is never going to be relaxed. I don't believe.
They feel it's too dangerous.
Yeah, it's too dangerous. But then the, like, for example, health supplements and things like that, they are totally, they welcome you to come in. And actually, in many ways, the market in China is very, very open for some people. But you have to know how to do that market. it's not that, it's just that it's open, You have to know how to do it. Like Peter Liu would know how to do it, for example.
But I think we want to save some time for questions from the audience. There's so many things you've done, and I think we're in a very uncertain period for China right now. And people who are rooting for China are hoping that there are ways in which China can be open enough so that new capital will come in, where young people have an opportunity to be successful like you are. And are there any questions you would like to kick off on that one? We have a microphone here. Thank you, John.
There are a few.
There are quite a few back there.
Hi there. Thank you so much again for the panel today. I just had a quick question, if either of you and what you think about this kind of fragmentation of media through like TikTok, Douyin, and basically it's not as, centralized as it was before. If someone's advocating for, more kind of this cross-cultural exchange, and what you think of that, and or if either, I guess, Yue-Sai, if you've considered doing it as well.
What is the question, though?
I guess, are you excited for it? Do you see a future in it? If you still want to work on this type of thing?
Somebody just came to me and said, the head of e-commerce for TikTok came to me and said, Yue-Sai, we think that you should have a line of products on TikTok. I said, but your TikToks are all young people. He said, but you come, we'll build some older people for you. Should I say yes, thank you?
A big part of the market for skincare are young people now.
Oh my God, yes.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
People who are 20 years old are worried about a little wrinkle here.
Lulu is so right. It's about 75% of the plastic surgery in this country are over the age of 35. 45% of the people who do plastic surgery in China are under 28. So that really means
and
that.
Brazil too, Latin America, the women are starting early to try to correct.
You guys have to double check those figures, but it's a very amazing figure. Okay, yes, Brazil is an amazing country, but Brazil is amazing. L'Oreal has a skincare laboratory. They test all the skins, because Brazil is so diversified in terms of people.
For young people.
Like the whitest skin to the darkest skin is all in Brazil. That's why they do all the those work in. Don't you think so, Marcelo? Yeah. But so what was I talking about?
So we're talking about how the young people and how you can market to them. And TikTok's become a major, not only social but also commercial
but
platform.
Douyin, you're talking about Douyin in China. TikTok is here. Douyin in China is the biggest selling platform right now in China. If you are doing business in China, you will have to go into Douyin and sell it. And even CEOs now going onto Douyin to push their products. It's amazing. It's an amazing platform, yeah. Yes?
Hi, Yue-Sai. Nice seeing you again. I was at your house last week. I think you're an expert in brand building, not only in your cosmetic line, but also brand building yourself. As this image, right, we all see that you're a wonderful businesswoman and also a spokesperson for both worlds. Actually, last week, I had a conversation about, we talk today a lot about Chinese market, how big potentials and how every brand wants to go in from the Western world to the East. But, what about the Chinese luxury brands? Because last week, I had a conversation with someone here from the industry. And then what he told me, he's like, everything made in China, they're just cheap. They can't be in the luxury. And I was very upset about that. So let's say right now there's a trend, there's a lot of Chinese good products, very good brands, premium brands, who are already very popular in the Chinese market. And right now there's a trend, they're coming out, they're actually coming to this market here. What are the advices that you will give to these companies? Thank you. In consumer products.
Don't do it unless you know what your dog doing. It's not so simple. You know, if you know how to market in the Chinese culture and Chinese world, and you want to market in this country, you really have to study this country, because there's no other way. But luxury products in China, from foreign luxury products, are doing extremely well. Even in this very, very bad market, right at this moment, there are still 3 brands that are still going up. I mean, a lot of brands are not doing as well, of course, in this economy. The three are Louis Vuitton, that's an incredible brand, and Hermes. Hermes is like people fight to get Hermes in China. And the third, what is the third one? Chanel. Chanel. Those are the 3 brands that are doing exceptionally well. They make, every image makes how about billions of dollars in China. You talk about people who are doing very well. Cosmetics do very well. L'Oreal is the #1 Western cosmetics in China. They invest a lot of money in China, and they're doing very, very well in China. So in us as a lottery, they do very, very well in China. This is not a market you want to ignore, for sure. But coming back out here, it's not. It's not that simple. It's not so easy. They really have to. It's just like when I first went to China. I really needed someone to show me the way. You're talking about doing a business in a completely different environment. My Chinese was lousy. I don't know too much about the culture itself. Because don't forget, I left China when I was 4, and then I went to Hong Kong. Hong Kong was very British. We were British. And I came to America already at 16. So I really knew very little about Chinese culture. I had to learn it like a foreigner learns my own culture in China, right? So I basically, we are American Chinese. We learn about ourselves, our culture, later on in life. So it takes years. And the same thing as trying to do business in this country. Okay. You have to spend the time and the money and the humility. Humility.
Not humidity. Yeah. That too, when you work so hard.
Humility to learn and say that even though I'm doing sensational. But you know what is doing really well? I think that Chinese food is going to do really well. Chinese restaurants are going to, all the Hai Di Lao, or, all those things, all those I think are going to come out of China. And these are the areas that are not political anyway. So I think we can, we love Chinese food, don't we?
It's a great ambassador for different cultures.
Yeah.
You eat each other's food and you can become friends.
Yeah, yeah. So Chinese food, actually Chinese food is very interesting. Chinese food, we have 45,000 Chinese restaurants in this country. And if there is that's more than all the fast food combined together. So if there is a national cuisine in this country, there has to be Chinese food. And yet the Chinese restaurant, the Chinese food really has done very, very poor in promoting itself. And I think there's only one Michelin star in one restaurant with Michelin, with all those restaurants. But there are quite a number of Japanese that have Michelin, and there are quite a few Koreans even with Michelin, right? So why? Because the Chinese are stupid. They don't know how to promote themselves. Let me ask you, where do you think that kimchi comes from? I know that you say that it's from Korea.
But originally...
originally it's from China.
Yes. Right. But Yue-Sai, going back to something you just said, Chinese are not good at promoting themselves.
Oh, no, God.
And I know for time immemorial, people in philanthropy and not-for-profit always say, the Chinese, they don't know how to be philanthropic. Or when they are, they don't ever want to be public about it. They're so private. And yet, when we're in the world now where there's a lot of Asian bashing, a lot of people say the Asians who really are part of the community, who give back a lot, you have to be more public about it so that your neighbors know you care about the community, you give back. And it's something that I think Oscar and I were actually, remember about 15 years ago, we were interviewed by Barron's, why don't the Chinese give? And we said that we do give, but we give very quietly. But in the last 15 years, the Chinese have learned that you want to be able to let the community know that the Chinese members of the community do give back. And they've become more public about it. But you yourself now have become very public about your philanthropy because you understand people need to know that you care about this country. You make a commitment to it. You have stakes here. And
A couple of points I want to say.
Sure.
The first point I want to say is that I've done philanthropy both in this country and China. When I first started doing philanthropy in China in the 80s, people still thought that I was joking. 搞笑. They say, you're joking. You give away the money that you earn so hard, They still thought that I was joking. This is really, this is not a joke.
Yes.
They really believe that. So, and I remember, then a few very important earthquakes came around, and then the world just sort of put money in. At the very beginning, the Chinese government, hey, you have to understand where that is from, okay? Study the background of the Chinese. The Chinese Communist Party, the doctrines say things that their job is to take care of you from cradle to grave. This is what the job of the party is supposed to be. So if you come and say, I am going to help you, I'm going to give you some money, then it seems like it's a very big loss of faith. This is how I interpret it. Because at the beginning, it was really difficult. And I remember when there was a big, in Beijing, there was a very big women's,
Congress?
UN,
Yes, right.
Women's Federation, Women's
Federation.
Conference, UN.
Conference on Women.
Yeah, UN Conference on Women.
Fourth World Conference on Women.
That's right. It was there. So
1995.
so they came to me because I'm a very good friend of Butcher Scully. So Mrs. Scully said, please, Yue-Sai, you should do something because it's going to be in Beijing. And Mrs. Butcher Scully says, and I'm going. And so that was the beginning of my cosmetic company. That year we made $1.5 million, and I donated the entire thing to the conference. And you know what? They wanted to charge me tax, and that was how backward China was. There was no such a thing as And then of course, from that very low point, Oh, by the way, they had another cosmetic company too. I was so upset because I was supposed to be the exclusive. They did not know what exclusive meant. So anyway, but from that low point, it's very interesting. They began to get the tax-free. Sort of, for example, you make $1 million, they can give you a tax deduction out of the profit you make. Is not just your income, the profit only, right? And so they began like 2%, 4%, 6%. It changed. And what I was so shocked one day, the Chinese government actually had an award ceremony to the biggest givers in China. It was really so, so amazing.
So is philanthropy now taking off in China?
Yeah,
Is the
it's-
Chinese Americans have learned the power of philanthropy?
Yeah, but still, there are a lot of people that think that, let me see, what can you give me if I give you money? There's still a very big question that they still ask that question. It's not like, Americans are the most amazing, most philanthropic people. Look at you.
Oh,
You
no,
know.
but in the U.S. we have tax breaks, and that's a motivation. But beyond that, I think you're right. America was made by immigrants coming together and pooling their resources, their blood, sweat, and tears, and building this country. And I think the Chinese who've been here for a while really understand this, and they sort of buy into that whole ethic. I think in the past, the Chinese have been very quiet. We're not about to beat our chest and say, I gave this, I gave that. But now I think we understand the power of having Chinese names on great institutions for our community.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I'm very involved with China Institute. The reason why I am so involved with China Institute is for one reason. I just find that the Chinese are so much like sand. I look at the Jewish people and I say, I have such admiration for how they glue themselves together. Of course, they are lucky. They have the they have the luxury of religion.
Yes.
So they are religiously agreeing upon each other. But they more importantly, they are very much glued together. And the only organization in other than Asia Society is China Institute. China Institute is the one organization that's been around for 100 years that does nothing but promoting Chinese culture. So I'm very interested in seeing if we can use at least a cultural organization to try to glue the next gen, glue the people together so that we understand a little bit more about the Chinese culture like I understand, like I learned the Chinese culture, right? So I think that everybody has a different mission in life, and you are my role model because you have made, no, seriously, you have created you have devoted your life to public good. That's everything you do is for other people. I know that you get up at 7 o'clock in the morning, you go to meetings already. And I mean, I don't know too many people doing that. And they're all charitable meetings.
But Daisy, you have a question.
I don't have a question. I have a story.
Yes,
Good.
Daisy.
This is Daisy Soros, who's a famous first-generation American, and she has much wisdom and much generosity.
Well, this is not wisdom, but I think you have to be a little careful with your cosmetics, because I tell you a story. This lady who was walking down Fifth Avenue, and she hears a voice, "You're going to live to be 100. You're going to live to be 100. And she looks around, and there's nobody there. So she realizes God is talking to her. So she goes home, and she looks in the mirror, and she looks God awful. So she goes to the plastic surgeon. This, by the way, happened in China. And she has her eyes done and her face done. And she goes to the cosmetic store, and she ends up to be beautiful. So she goes on, has a wonderful life. 6 months later, she's walking on Park Avenue of China. I don't know what the park, even though I was there in 1979 in China, by the way. And a taxi comes, hits her, she's dead. So she goes up to heaven and says to the Lord, "I don't understand. You told me I'm going to live to be 100. What happened?" And the Lord says, "I'm so sorry. I didn't recognize you."
This is very interesting, because there are Chinese parents. They want their children to have double lips. They started having a surgery even when they're they're babies. Isn't that interesting? But the Koreans do the best, eye surgery.
Well, the Koreans have wonderful skincare products. Are we time-wise? All right.
That's it. That's it, guys.
Thank you so much.